How you doing, everybody? This is the Power Guy talking to you live from Chicago, Illinois. I want to bring up and focus on something that's going on in the area, Illinois, and probably an epidemic that's happening in the domestic relation courts within this country. A lot of these state courts, the female petitioners in fruitless and baseless divorce cases are getting an unfair advantage over the male respondents by and use of the Domestic Violence Act. In other words, they're using the Domestic Violence Act to bypass and circumvent the marriage laws as to gain an unfair advantage over the respondent, usually the male. And then they come into court and use the Domestic Violence Act, usually probably through emergency reasons or emergency applications, and they get the marital property and controlling custody of the children over the respondent. And that usually happens probably in pretrial applications. So when they do come into court, in the domestic relation court, which is being denied or being obstructed of jury trials, the male respondent is now in on his heels and at a disadvantage when he goes into trial court, because now he's probably kicked out of the marital home and he's been forced to relocate himself onto another property or another situation at a disadvantage where the female petitioner has gained access, exclusive property rights, and full control and custody over the children. So when they come into the bench trial, guess what happens? Now the guardian ad litem, usually a female, attaches herself to the female petitioner, and she advocates for the female petitioner as to say, hey, well, the children, they don't want to be upset. They've been living in the marital home and all this stuff and everything like that, and that creates an unfair advantage for them, the respondent, to then do an uphill climb against the petitioner in a biased court setting. And guess what? The politicalized judicial system, the judge, usually a Democratic elected judge, then awards the female petitioner full custody of the children, full controlling interests of the marital property and everything like that. And that's an epidemic that is arising in these biased state courts. And usually the female is employing advantage through the Domestic Violence Act, which case law precedents say that she cannot do. And these judges know about that. But yet they still do it. Why? Because they're not there to gain fair and impartial fundamental justice. They're there only to enhance their woke democratic views, agendas, and narratives so that the female petitioner could cover up all the injustice that's being foisted against the male respondent. And therefore, this epidemic is destroying the nuclear family. It's destroying fatherhood rights because these idiot Democratic elected domestic relation judges, they don't give a damn about fair and injustice or a fair justice towards the male. No. They're doing it to get the female well on beyond the road so that they can cover up the injustice. And then when the male respondent takes it to the appellate court, guess what? The appellate court is just as corrupt as the domestic relation court. And I got proof here that this is blatantly occurring in the Cook and Will County, Illinois courts, in the 1st and 3rd District appellate courts, which is probably occurring also in the court systems around the region. And this epidemic should be addressed by the Republican Party, which is another thing. I live in the state of Illinois, which is extremely Democratic, and I've got the ballots here, and I voted Republican. And there was zero nominated Republican judges into the Cook County, Illinois judicial system. Why is that? Because the Republican Party is so weak out here, and you got a bunch of idiots and morons that are just hiding in the shadows because they're too scared to push back against the democratic system, allowing these democratic elected judges to lay out the red carpet for these female petitioners as to abuse the Illinois Domestic Violence Act to gain unfair advantages in these female petition divorces, which is what? Approaching about 80% of the petitioners in divorce cases are females? Whoa! And then once a female gets this unfair advantage and she gets everything through the Illinois Domestic Violence Act as to circumvent the Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Law Act, she then turns around, brags to all her friends, her married friends, say, hey, if she could do it, I could do it. And it's like a disease. It keeps going on and on and on. And that's what's destroying the American family, the American nuclear family. And therefore, kids are being raised improperly by an ineffective, vindictive mother that's brainwashing the children against a loving father. And this epidemic has got to stop. It's got to be addressed by the legislature. And I've notified the FBI. I've notified the Illinois governor, what's that, J.D. Pritzker, and everybody went silent. Why is that? Because of the political agendas, the political affiliations of these judges and all this stuff. And we see it going rampant in New York against Donald Trump and in Georgia against Donald Trump. We see how it's occurring in Washington, D.C. You know, this is nowhere near how this United States judicial system should work. Even the federal court over here in, the Northern District, 7th Circuit, is looking the other way. Is this what happened to our judicial system? Really? Is this what's going on with these unfair judges and these judges thinking that they're above the law? No. We got to evaporate the qualified judicial immunity against these judges, opening up their them for lawsuits. This has got to stop. And the judicial system and the Republican Party's got to get strong, and it's got to take a stand against what these Democratic elected judges and appellate justices, and even in the federal court, that are just blatantly violating constitutional, fair and impartial due process justice. Once we stop that and get the government out of our private families and properties, then we'll have our country and our America once again standing strong like it did in the 60s and 70s. Thank you.